Welcome to WagerTalk's last call. Yeah, I got to put this phone on the charger. It's already at 40%. That's how we know it's March Madness, guys. 11 a.m. Eastern here, 8 a.m. Pacific on the West Coast. I know you guys are ready to get some of these last-minute plays, talk to some of our handicappers, get all of your questions answered, and, of course, get that elusive text from Art DeCesar behind the counter at the Westgate Superbook. We're going to change things up this morning. We're going to bring in Teddy Covers first. We got VR. You guys know him as Gianni the Greek coming up next, and then Steve Merril. So if you guys have a question for one of those three guys, please drop it in the chat. We're going to go about 45 minutes because Wager Talk today comes on at its normal time right after this, but I had to make a couple of concessions here this week and do two special shows just for our loyal listeners. So if you guys have a question, drop it in the chat. If you don't, I got bets to make, guys, like chop. Teddy Covers got a couple games he wants to touch on here first. Good morning, Teddy. I know it's early out there. You have a big day to meet some other Wager Talk handicappers out and about in Las Vegas, the best place to watch the opening round of March Madness.
It really is. I mean, you can watch it at a venue. I suppose being at a venue might be better. But I don't know that it is, because at a venue, you get one game at a time. In Vegas, you get all the games all the time for the full day. I mean, it's one of those bucket list things. If you haven't done it once, spend an opening weekend in Vegas. We're going out, like I said, like you mentioned, we're going out and about today. We're hanging out with Rob Vino and Brian Leonard and Ski Profit and some of the Vegas guys. Should be a lot of fun. And it's a scene. It really is. It's, the books are hopping. And what's it now? 8 o'clock in the morning in Vegas? An hour from now, you won't be able to get a seat in a sports book in town.
No, you can't get a seat in the sportsbook right now, and you can't get a drink from the bar. Like, I guarantee if I was at the Westgate this morning, I would be in a world of hurt. Let's get right into these games, Teddy. The game that perplexes me the most, this is just full disclosure, I did not bet it. I wanted to take Utah State so badly versus UCLA. And then what happens? Recency bias creeps in. I'm on a cruise the other night. I know some buddies had North Carolina. I thought, man, I kind of like San Diego State. Stayed off, thank God, because boy, oh boy, has the Mountain West for a better part of a decade looked awful in the NCAA tournament. And so that just sits in the back of my mind sometimes and keeps me off of bets. Plus, we'll get to some sharp action here later on in the show. That definitely was the nail in the coffin. I said, I don't want anything to do with Utah State. Teddy, talk to me about Utah State, UCLA.
Absolutely. Utah State and UCLA. And right now, looking at my Odds Logic live odds screen. Yeah, it's already been a long couple of days, and it's going to be longer before the weekend is through. Looking at my WagerTalk / Odds Logic live odds screen right now, I'm seeing UCLA -5.5. Total 144 in that range. This is a late game in Lexington tonight. And certainly, when we look at UCLA, I thought they kind of got screwed in the Big Ten Conference Tournament. All right. That was their fifth trip back east across multiple time zones since the beginning of January, which is more travel than NBA teams do. And then they had to play an early start game, which if you've ever traveled from the West Coast back east and then you have to get up at 7 a.m. or 9 a.m., it's brutal. I wasn't shocked that they no-showed in that game against Wisconsin. They had nearly a full week off since that loss. They're not playing an early start game here. They're in prime time tonight. And you talked to Kelly about wanting to fade Utah State. I want to fade Utah State too. I don't think there's any comparison between these two teams in at least one key sense. There's only one team that can get a key stop during crunch time, and that is the UCLA Bruins. The Bruins with the 17th ranked defense in the country, which is exactly what we expect from Mick Cronin coach teams. Utah State versus a much weaker schedule, number 149 in defensive efficiency compared to number 17. And again, from a strength of schedule standpoint, Utah State was giving up more points and weaker defensive results against weaker foes. So you talk about some of the struggles that the Mountain West has had. It's not just the past decade. It's really since I've been in Vegas. But what are we talking about? 10 and 23 ATS since 2016. And that includes a Final Four run from San Diego State and another Sweet 16 run from San Diego State. So a lot of the covers were one team. The Big Ten's actually been money makers in the round of 64. We think about all the upsets and Purdue getting knocked off every year, and Illinois and all this stuff. 51, 34, and 3 in the round of 64 since 2011. That's the best mark of any conference in this particular round. And Utah State, again, I watched them play a lot this year. All right. When they can play with pace, when they get up and down the floor, and they can hit shots, and they can be a dangerous team. They're certainly a real good team when they played at home. But you put Utah State on a neutral against a team that can play, and I think they get outclassed here. So for me, it's a clear choice. UCLA is the only way I would play this. The early sharp money came in the Bruins, and I agree with that money. It's UCLA or pass for this better.
Real quick, Teddy, I think it was you and I. It might have been one of the other 27 handicappers we have at WagerTalk.com. But my biggest pet peeve with UCLA was, in fact, they don't make their free throws down the stretch, right? I think it was like late January, and I was like, I'm kind of done with them right now, at least for the full game. Now that we've seen the sharp money come in from 4.5, 5.5, what is your threshold with this team? Do you think that they're going to run away with it late? Or my general concern is, did I miss the number? And am I going to get screwed by free throws late here and be very upset with myself?
So the 4.5 to 5.5, well, with that happened, boom. So Sunday night into Monday morning. By Monday morning was 5.5 in most locations. I would go up to 6 here with UCLA, but you don't want to get on the real bad end of some of the, when lines start to skyrocket and you're losing, instead of a push number, now it's a loss number. That would be where 6 would be where I stop with UCLA. I don't know that I mean, at 7, I might make the bet, but it'd be for a smaller amount. You reduce your unit size for sure. When it comes to free throw shooting, there are lots of reasons you can give yourself to get on and off bets. All right. Lots and lots. And these lines are going to be tight. And there will be little, what do we look for? We look for little edges over time. And little edges over time produce profitable results. When it comes to this is what they shot for the season at the free throw line versus I'm going to lay 4.5 and now I can't lay 5.5, or I'm going to lay 5.5 and I can't lay 6.5. I think you're splitting hairs. It's a piece of the handicap. And if the wrong guy gets on the free throw and everyone goes 1 or 2 down the stretch and they only win by 5 instead of winning by 7, it'll be frustrating. But that's a piece of the game. It is what it is with the Bruins. My handicap's not going to make them a better free throw shooting team. And my lack of a bet on UCLA isn't going to make them a worse free throw shooting team. So it's just we'll let the chips fall where they may when it comes to the end game here. That being said, I would not be surprised if UCLA won this game by double digits. I wouldn't.
Okay. See, I ask these questions because the degenerate inside of my brain says that everybody's going to be drinking all day long. They're going to be hanging out. They hopefully are not going to be chasing late, but you never know. And by, talking 6, 7 o'clock, this line could be significantly higher. So if you like UCLA, lay the 5.5 now. Do not wait. Let's talk about my favorite second half team in the country. That would be the Johnnies. They are taking on Omaha. And Teddy, you mentioned this before we came on. You said, hey, I don't bet on teams I don't know. Well, Nebraska-Omaha in the Summit League, 22-12, and an awful defense. That's all I know because that's what Ken Palm tells me, right? So here is a team that I have really enjoyed backing all season long, but I always wait until halftime. Tell me your thoughts here on St. John's, Nebraska-Omaha.
So I wouldn't argue with the concept of waiting till halftime in this game as well. Let's break it down. Omaha versus St. John's. This is late night tonight from Providence, Rhode Island. Looking at my Odds Logic live odds screen, we're looking at St. John's minus 18.5 total. Let's call it 148.5 for this ballgame. And if I'm going to give you a primer on what I'm not going to do the first 2 days of the tournament in the round of 64, this is what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to be betting on teams that just went balls to the wall to win their conference tournament and look great doing it and made all their backers a fortune all weekend and built up a betting bandwagon, and now they're laying double digits to some team that nobody's watched and has no real profile. I can't do it. It's not a positive expectation betting strategy. There's a bandwagon on one side. There's nobody on the other side. All right. So a priori, I'm not really looking at St. John's. And I'll tell you this. If St. John's covers this game tonight, I think it tells us something about St. John's, and what they're capable of doing in the tournament. I've kind of poo-pooed their chances. And Omaha's not tough competition for them, but if they come in with the focus tonight to blow this team off the floor, that's going to tell me something, because it's not a focus spot for the 18.5-point favorite. So Nebraska's Omaha is not a team that we pay attention to all year long. What we can do from Nebraska-Omaha is dig in and take a look at what their season was really like. So they were a dog against St. Thomas, Minnesota in their title game. So they were an undervalued commodity there. Teams that didn't face tough competition, the smaller conference squads, I don't want to worry too much about what happened back in November, because teams change a lot from November. But when it comes to teams like this, that's all we got. It's an important reference point. And they played a bunch of teams that we're familiar with in November and December. They were at UNLV, they were at Minnesota, they were at Akron, and those were all competitive games, single-digit losses. Akron's a pretty good team. UNLV, Minnesota, they're okay. I know they're not St. John's, but they showed they could play within single digits on the highway. They had a bad road trip, one bad road trip. They went to Iowa in the middle of December, and they got bombed in back-to-back games. Iowa State and Northern Iowa. It was one weekend. They lost those games by 50, right in the middle of finals. And those two price points where they got blown out in those two games basically affect their power rating the rest of the year, because they haven't played anything up in class, So that's why they were an underdog in their conference title game, and that's why they're plus 18.5 here and not plus 15.5 or something, The markets don't really know this team. It's all formulaic. They had a 6-1 ATS run and a 9-0 ATS run early, and then what happened? The markets valued them too high. They had a 1-5 ATS skids. The market's corrected. And right now, what's going on with Omaha? 6 straight covers. I think it's 7 straight covers. Johnny's win, Mavericks cover. That's the only way that I would bet this one. You can't make money in the NCAA tournament laying big prices with teams off big conference tournament victories against opponents that don't have a betting marketplace that supports them. So lean dog for this one. I think the price for the favorite tonight is a little bit too high.
Well, Ted, I think you just sold me on Nebraska-Omaha first half, as well as waiting till halftime to look at St. John's. All right, last but not least, we saw this team last night, Mount St. Mary, taking on the Duke Blue Devils. Duke looks to have the easiest bracket here, or at least their side of the bracket as a 1 seed. So I am frantically cheering, Teddy, for them to get upset by somebody that's probably not going to, because I don't want Florida to have to face them at any point in time. Talk to me about a lot of points here with the Blue Devils.
Absolutely. Before I talk to you about Duke and Mount St. Mary's, I do want to ask you guys a simple favor. If you like this type of content, hit the like button. Done. Problem solved. Tell us what you think below. We appreciate all the comments. Agree, disagree. It's okay to disagree with me. I won't be mad at you. It takes both sides to have a betting marketplace. But the likes, the comments make all the difference. If you haven't done so, what do we have? Do we have 200,000 yet? I've been saying nearly 200,000 have subscribed to the WagerTalk YouTube channel. If you haven't done so, March Madness, the opening day is the perfect day to do it. Do it right now. I'm running pretty good right now, Kel. We won again in the NBA last night. I'm on a 6-1, 86% college hoops run. Last year, March Madness, 25-8 down the stretch, 76%. My clients were very pleased with March last year. So running good in college hoops right now. Did very well in this tournament last year. And we got the great deal right now where you buy the month of April and get the rest of March for free. What's it, $6.50 a day, something like that? It's a good deal. Check out my page, wt.buzz/TC. Don't buy a play. I have a 5% big ticket up for tomorrow. Don't buy it. Get the package and get on board for the entirety of the tournament, all of April, baseball, NBA. That's the deal to get right now. When we talk about Duke and Mount St. Mary's, it's an early start game in Raleigh, the home crowd edge for the Blue Devils, minus 32, total of 140.5. I don't do much with college basketball point spreads in the 30s. I'm really not looking at sides. If I get involved, the only way I'm going to look in these minus 30-plus games is on the favorite. The dog can't compete, all right? And this dog is not going to be competing with Duke. This is not a scenario where the 16 seed is going to upset the 1. Ain't happening here. All right. The Blue Devils can name this score. And there's travel involved as well from Mount St. Mary's. Dayton to Raleigh. It's not a long trip, but no one's getting comfortable in their beds. And of course, they played not Tuesday night, they played Wednesday night, and now it's a Friday early game. The committee didn't do them any favors. They're fodder, okay? This is not a potential upset. But 32 points is too much for me. There's still a bet to be made here, however. Let's look at what Duke's been doing in the John Shire era, okay? First round last year against Vermont, 64-47. They shut Vermont down, controlled the pace, no fast break points against them, nothing in the paint. Vermont team total way under, game stayed way under. Second round against James Madison. Again, this is Shire coaching, not Krzyzewski. 93-55 final. The game pushed on the total because Duke scored 93 points, but James Madison team total under cash. The previous year, first round, Oral Roberts, 74-51. Oral Roberts team total under, full game under. Second game that year versus Tennessee, the under cashed as well. So I like unders 1 versus 16 to begin with. 16 can't score, control pace. Number one's going to burn the clock the whole second half. As long as they don't explode early, the pace is going to die the last 10 minutes when one team's up 20 or 30. Duke's playing unders in the first round. 3-0-1 to the under the last 2 years under Shire. And, of course, Mount St. Mary's. I would look to under in the game and team total under for St. Mary's in this one. That's the only way I would get involved with Duke, Mount St. Mary's early start on Friday.
All right, Teddy Covers. Enjoy the madness there in Vegas. Part of me is like, dang, I wish I was in Vegas, but part of me is like, I am so glad I'm not in Vegas. Really quickly, Andrew Wojnicki wants to know before you leave, tell me you like the Michigan Wolverines. If you guys don't know, Teddy is a Wolverine alumnus, and well, I don't know what to make of this game. I feel like UC San Diego is the square dog, yet I don't trust Michigan.
So I'm going to break this game down on WagerTalk today at the top of the next hour. But for a brief word, I don't want the dog. This is a popular dog against. And again, I talked about the scenario where I don't want the team that just went on a big run in the conference tournament, made everyone money and built a betting bandwagon. I don't want them laying 18.5, but I can lay 2 against a team that hasn't faced anybody all year. So yes, it is Michigan or pass for me, but I haven't pulled the trigger. And I don't think I'm gonna. That one stinks to high heaven.
It does stink to high heaven. I don't know what to make of this game. Teddy Covers, as he mentioned, make sure you guys check him out. WagerTalk today, right up here at the top of the hour. Let's bring in VR. We've got some stuff from him, and I'm going to tell him, as I always do, what Art the Caesar's got so that we can see if we have some confirmation biases here. VR, welcome in. I know it's early there on the West Coast, so we appreciate you. My phone is at 84%, so I'm almost ready for the day. Let's see. Sharp money. Louisville money line, which is the first game that tips off here against Creighton. They bet it at minus 140. Now we know it's headed to 150 and higher. UCLA minus 4.5. Now 5.5. As Teddy mentioned, we might start to see some 6s. That is a late game. Gonzaga minus 6. Now 6.5. VCU plus 3.5, now 2.5. Said the public is on Yale, Purdue, Missouri, and his favorite play of the day is Montana plus 17. VR, I'm going to give you a couple more. Last night, John Murray also mentioned those Montana Grizz, Mississippi State, High Point, and Vanderbilt.
Oh, as sharp or public?
As what they're going to need. So I'm assuming some of the sharp guys came in, or it's a very lopsided game for them.
Right while I was coming on, we just bet under, just throwing it out there. I'm not using it for subscribers, but we just bet under 154.5, 154 they're willing to take on the High Point Purdue game we just bet. I'm going to share 3 props real quickly because I know bettors like the bet props. I don't use these for subscribers a lot because the lines move quickly if they're so time sensitive. But I know bettors out there like them. Georgia versus Gonzaga. We went over 1.5 3-point field goals, over 1.5 3-point field goals for Blue Cane, over 3.5, 1.5, forgive me, at plus money. We took like plus 105, anything at even money or better. You're good there, over 1.5 3-point field goals for Blue Cane. And then Purdue and High Point, we went under 8.5 total points, up to minus 130 on Bobby Pettiford. And finally, this last one that came in yesterday was Danny Wolf over 10.5 rebounds. That's the Michigan against UC San Diego game. Now, getting back to what you touched on, here's what I can tell you real quickly. The BYU was the side early on. We laid 2.5 with BYU, and then I saw some take back on the VCU side. You're absolutely right there. But there is a difference of opinion between betting syndicates on the BYU side or the VCU side, because if you remember earlier in the week, this had gotten up to 3.5 juiced, like minus 115 at some of the sharper shops like Bet Online, at Pinnacle. So there's definitely a difference of opinion there. UCLA, I released that to my subscribers early. We laid 4.5 and 5. I gave that out as a 4% play to subscribers. I like that UCLA side as well. Louisville, we bet Louisville. We actually laid the 2.5 and 3 and some money line, but the money line had gotten away. Someone else had bet it early at, like you said, at minus 140. By the time we got involved, it was up to like 150, I believe. So instead, we laid 2.5 and 3 on the Louisville side. A couple other sharp sides. Yeah, Montana was definitely sharp, and the over 152 in that Montana side. What else can I tell you? Liberty's gotten money from sharp bettors, but that's one of them that I see the public on as well. Public's real heavy on a couple games, and if you are opposite some of the sharp money, and what I mean by that is you're seeing a lot of NC Wilmington against Texas Tech. You're seeing a lot of Drake. I know they said Missouri over there at Westgate, but most of the books I have access to are getting a ton of Drake money line, and also Arkansas against Kansas. I actually bet Kansas. I gave Kansas out at minus 4. I like that Kansas side. I thought they were a little bit undervalued coming into this tournament. And, now it's up to 5. So the market moved with me. But looking at the back end, recreational bettors are all over Arkansas, just like they're all over High Point. They love High Point over Purdue. You see the line gave them a little bit of respect. It was 9. Now it's down to 8. It's even 8 minus 115 to take that High Point side. I don't think that's sharp. None of the groups that I bet college basketball for, or the guys that I share the stuff I get and they share stuff they get, has High Point anywhere in there. So I think that's just one of those public darlings that they are in love with. Where else can we go? A couple totals. The VCU BYU game over 145, 45.5, and 46. Also over in the Utah State and UCLA game. So they do expect UCLA to be able to put up points. And like I said, we laid the points there with UCLA. And talking about that Clemson game, the Louisville game real early, that's the heaviest bet right now. As I'm looking at the back end, out of all the early games, that one's getting the most volume. And right now it's currently 5-1 in favor of Creighton. So yeah, the sharps, if anything, they helped limit the exposure for the books. That's why you haven't seen this line climb up to 3.5 or 4. It's that time of the year where public money outweighs sharp money by such a huge volume, almost like Super Bowl type of volume, where, if anything, a lot of the sharps that come in opposite, they're just going to help the book by limiting some of their risk. So they don't mind giving them an extra half point here, an extra point there, if it's going to help them limit some of their exposure on a lot of these sides. And that's a perfect example, because you see that Louisville line, usually that would go right, blast through that first one possession of 3. And you'd be laying 3 minus 120. You'd be laying minus 3.5, minus 115. Some of the square shops would probably all the way up to 4. But because of all the public money, like I said early on, it's definitely helped them balance some of their risk. And the only total that really sticks out that the recreational bettors are betting it like they already know 200 points are coming, that's High Point versus Purdue. So they like High Point versus Purdue. They're betting that one over. I get it. Purdue's solid offense, top 10, top 15 offense, not a good defense this year. I think that the ratings I'm looking at have them like 70th in defensive efficiency. So the public's seeing that and they're betting it over. But if you see any line movement there, it's definitely public money related. And a couple other big one-sided public games. Because again, it's going to be interesting. Follow to see if sharp money comes in opposite these, because they're really heavy. Going down the list, like I said, High Point pops out huge. Arkansas jumps out huge. move down to Drake. Ticket count money on Drake as well. And that one had gotten up to 7. That's why you see that drop down to 6. Again, it's none of the groups I work with, none of the information I have access to has Drake anywhere. So that move from the 7, because it got bet up, when sharp bettors laid the 6, went up to 7. Then you started seeing the public unloading on Drake money line. They're one of those sexy teams that everyone's betting in this first round. And Yale against Texas A&M. That one's interesting because one of the guys that I share with, his guys were picking off 7s. Now I know there's talk of Yale also being sharp because of the line move. I can tell you any 7s that were out there, these guys were picking it off earlier in the week. I'm not sure where it sits right now, but they were definitely looking for 7 on Texas A&M. And any 7s that were available, they took them out. That's why you're seeing 7.5s. And finally, that Montana, it's rare. Again, when you're talking 16, 17 points, it's not rare to see the public on them, but it is a little heavier on that Montana side. That's why I think you're seeing even the line reflect there. I have my bracket up. If you go to Greek_Gambler, my bracket is up. Again, I put 15, 20 minutes into it. So if you have conviction, don't let me sway you at all. But I did bet Auburn at plus 550 to win the national championship. I also bet another prop, St. John's. That was a group gave it to me, St. John's, to get to the the Final Four, I believe, or Elite Eight. Let me look. I don't want to give you the wrong information. But we did bet St. John's to get to the Final Four as well. That's why I actually moved them in there into my Final Four. I didn't have them at first, but then once they came in on the St. Johnny's side, I went in and bet them as well. So that's some of the stuff that we're on, some of the stuff that I'm seeing already so far today. And hope you do some damage in March Madness. No better time than this throughout the day, from morning to night. Opinions will change, lines will move. No reason to rush. There's tomorrow, there's Saturday, there's Sunday. I got a 5% up, only my third in 2024-2025 season. This is only the third time I'm firing a 5%. It's on today's Thursday games. It's a late afternoon game, a night game if you're on the East Coast. And hopefully 2-0 so far. Hopefully we get it to 3-0. Hot right now, number 1 over the last 7 days, picked up over 35 units. Just this is how you want to be going into a tournament. So that gives you extreme confidence. Hopefully it continues over the next couple of weeks. We do some damage leading into baseball.
Absolutely. VR is going to be joining us all weekend long here on Last Call. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. He will be probably up first. Makes sense. Give him a long leash. Let him go. Great information from VR as always. We got Steve Merril waiting in the wings. Thanks, VR. We'll see you tomorrow. We got Steve Merril waiting in the wings to answer all of those questions that just populated in the chat. Where's Steve Merril? I hear him clicking.
I'm here.
I always know you're there because I hear your mouse click. I don't know why.
I need a new this mic is extra hot, Kelly. I left it in the car when I was traveling in November and it was like 30 degrees. And I swear ever since it hasn't been right. I've moved it farther away than ever. I have it completely down to 0 and it picks up the mouse click still. It's that bad. So I'm going to have to bite the bullet and buy another $200 Yeti mic.
He left his at my house. I said, Ralph, you want me to mail it to you? He's like, no, it's not worth it. So I'll mail it to you, Steve Merril. Then you can have Ralph's old mic.
Send me his mic because it might save me having to buy another one because they're great mics. But yeah, I think I skunked it. I don't know what happened. It's going bad and it's getting louder. Figure that one out, right? It's the opposite of what should happen. I can't put it far enough away, and I have to reach to mute it. That's why I'm muted half the time with you, Kelly, because it's too far away now. It's not an easy problems, right? Hey, problems. But I've given it a good run. I've given it a good run.
One of the most profitable handicappers at WagerTalk, and this man won't go buy a new $200 or $300 mic. All jokes aside, Bobby Hill is getting into the questions. Let's talk about this first game tipping off in 45 minutes. We got about 15 minutes with Steve before I got to let him go so we can do WagerTalk today. Creighton or Louisville? Louisville up to 3 now on the odds logic screen. Guessing we got some sharp money there. I know that Art DeCesar said the money line was bet earlier in the week.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. This is the whole new thing now, and Prez has talked about this a lot on WagerTalk today with basketball, even football. Ralph and him have talked about it, that if it's 2.5 or less, you play the money line. I mean, I'm kind of old school. I just play the point spread still. I'm not a big believer in laying minus 150 juice. I'd rather play the 2.5 or 3. That's just my personal opinion. Yes, you're going to win a few more games on the money line, but I still think long term you're better off laying minus 110 at 2.5 or 3 than minus 150. Louisville is the sharp side in this game, and I don't disagree. They're a really good team. Put it in perspective. 2 years ago, Kelly, they went 4-28. They won 4 games 2 years ago. They went 8-24 last year, and now they've won 20 of their last 22, and they come in off a loss to Duke. So it should be a very focused spot for Louisville. This is the early tip here in about an hour.
All right, guys, got some questions for Steve. Drop them in the chat as they start to populate. We're going to start answering questions. We've got a beautiful slate this weekend. Steve and I have a ton of videos up on some handicapping, right? And actually how to handicap this tournament, so if you guys need it. Steve, the other Steve wants to know, can you talk about High Point Purdue? Here's the reality. John Murray gave me a high point last night. I bet it. I took 8.5 points with this team. I know Art DeCesar said that they were kind of square. I know that VR said they were kind of square. But do we really trust Matt Painter and Purdue? That is kind of where my thought process is. He is 23-14 throughout his career.